Alan Wake is back. Or to be more precise, the concept of Alan Wake has been strategically modernized for a new audience who never played the original game and didn't play this one either. Sam Lake finally pushed out a sequel after staring into the narrative abyss for so long, the abyss started giving him notes on how to get the job done. The true path forward was not to refine the existing formula, but to instead introduce a new main character, integrate it with a control multiverse, and rebuild the entire gameplay loop around the thrilling mechanics of organizing post-it notes and Polaroid photos. The finished product is less a survival horror game, and more what happens when Sam Lake finishes House of Leaves, slams the book shut, and declares, "I can do that, but with more me." Let's start with the title, Alan Wake 2. A bold choice, a confident choice even. It implies a certain focus on a person named, and stay with me here, Alan Wake. So you can imagine my surprise when I spent roughly 60% of my playtime not as Timu Stephen King, but as Saga Anderson, an FBI agent with a backstory so implausible that she'd normally be described as the author's self-insert. But Sam Lake isn't a black woman, and already self-inserted himself into the game as two separate characters, so I'm forced to invent a new term like Corporate Mary Sue. A character that feels less like a person, and more like a cultural mandate given human form. She's the kind of character who doesn't survive horror. She audits it, sighing deeply at the inefficiency of the supernatural before solving it with her psychic intuition. Why should I feel that she's in danger or struggling when she solves a problem in a sleepless weekend that the former main character has been wrestling with for 13 years? The entire plot is self-congratulatory meta-slop, where Alan, trapped in a nightmare of his own making, has to write the very story that's unfolding to escape. The level of self-awareness is so intense, the game should come with a mirror and a complimentary therapy session. Sam Lake didn't just drink the meta-narrative Kool-Aid by adopting the jokes people made about him providing Max Payne's constipated face. He wrote a dense metaphysical thesis about its flavor notes, its cultural significance, and then shot an avant-garde live-action short film about it. Seriously, he did that. You can watch it in-game.
We all come to a story with hopes and expectations, looking for an answer. Sometimes it would be better to live with that hope without ever knowing the full story.
Alan Wake 2 begins by explaining that hoping for a sequel to the first game was a mistake. I appreciate his honesty, because I felt the same after this was over. This plot feels like a nightmare, written in a dream, while Sam Lake was driving.
I'm glad you're on this case with me, Anderson. It's right up your alley. You should take lead. Think of me as the backup.
It seems that from somewhere in the dark world, Alan picked up on modern-day Netflix writing and decided to give it a shot. He not only replaced himself with a strong female lead, but legally distinct Max Payne, her FBI senior, tells her to take charge of this murder case and she's so much better than him at investigating. They needed two former Remedy main characters to stand aside and cheerlead for how awesome Saga is. The local law enforcement assume Casey is in charge just because he's a man. This is a sheriff's department that was led by a female sheriff just a few years ago. These deputies likely worked for her. I'm getting some mixed messages from the police depiction in this game. In order to avoid being seen as copaganda, they muddy the water by using nearly every cop character stereotype. We play as an FBI agent, a good one, investigating the death of a bad FBI agent. The local deputies are misogynistic, the town sheriff is a humble good old boy, and then there's a hard-boiled noir detective with a drinking problem and flies off the handle into conspiracy theories. And finally there's the FBC, who are federal cryptid cops who suck at their jobs and die in mass casualty events. This may be a small vacation town, but there should be a larger presence at a ritualistic murder site than two sheriff's deputies.
You thinking of retiring? You know what happens to cops who say this is their last case.
That line didn't age well considering what happened to Casey's voice actor James McCaffrey not long after this game finished.
Casey, what exactly does the FBC do?
After New York, when I started looking for our friend here, their name came up.
Beginning with Control, essentially all of Remedy games are a part of the connected world, so the FBC is secretly investigating Cauldron Lake. But when you only own the rights to 2 of your 4 series, that multiverse is made up of Control and Alan Wake, while Max Payne is replaced with a legally distinct stand-in, and even though no one was asking for it, Quantum Break gets a mention when 2 of the characters from that game make an appearance under different names.
The Mind Place. My version of the Mind Palace technique.
Let's talk about the gameplay, or as I like to call it, the shuffling. Shuffling describes both types of gameplay found here. Saga and Alan move with the purposeful energy of a steam train fueled by jello shots. The combat, when it deigns to appear, since the first several hours is less game and more a walking simulator through a community theater production of Twin Peaks, is a tense ballet of shining your flashlight until a tumor of darkness pops, then firing 3 to 5 bullets into a man who politely waits his turn. Then there's the Mind Place, or whatever you want to call the menu systems of this game desperately wants you to think are revolutionary. Saga's investigative technique seems to be standing in a room and thinking really hard until the plot confesses to her. Her deductive caseboard involves connecting red string between clues so obvious, they may as well be titled Plot Device A and MacGuffin B.
Never worked any cases together. After his partner got killed in the field, he went off the deep end. Got the boot pretty quick after that.
Nightingale was a real FBI agent back in the first game. He was working with the local police to find Alan after they suspected him of murdering his wife. But according to this game, Nightingale was fired from the FBI before he ever arrived in Bright Falls 13 years ago. I guess the local cops were really smitten by his irrational hatred of Alan Wake. How did a non-FBI agent even find out about the Alan Wake situation back then?
How did he end up here?
Up from the lake that's not a lake. It's dark. He was there too.
Saga must use her extensive training as an FBI investigator to piece together clues on the board, before finally giving up and using her psychic clairvoyance to actually figure everything out. Do you not think it's weird that when you profile a corpse that you hear a monster's voice? You honestly believe this is just your intuition? The first major twist occurs when she finds a manuscript page from a book that hasn't been written yet that describes exactly what she's doing at this very moment. Her reaction to this is the emotional equivalent of finding a typo on your dinner menu. The fabric of causality is unraveling and you're only mildly perturbed.
But the coroner won't be back in town for another week after Deerfest.
Not a problem. I'll do it myself.
Saga is so good that she's also a licensed medical coroner who can carry out autopsies. I might be the only person who will complain about this, but they removed driving from the sequel. For a rural town that was completely white just 13 years ago, Bright Falls has developed some remarkable diversity.
I'm Agent Saga Anderson. This is Agent Alex Casey.
Tim Breaker.
Sheriff Breaker, get it? As in he's the guy from Quantum Break? Was this one really necessary? You could probably buy that franchise back from Microsoft at this point, Remedy. I doubt they're going to use it, or even charge much.
Saga Anderson, as I live and breathe. I thought we'd never see you back here after that awful, awful thing happened to your baby girl.
The entire town of Bright Falls operates on an economy of nightmare logic, where every resident has a PhD in ominous non-sequitur dialogue. You'll walk through the local diner and people will respond with a monologue about how Saga used to live in Bright Falls until her daughter drowned, which is news to Saga since her daughter isn't dead and she's never lived here before. The game is so obsessed with its own cleverness it constantly sacrifices coherence at the altar of vibe. You start to crave a character who just says, "I don't know, man. The forest is scary. Want a beer?"
Oh, I know what this is. You're blocking out your traumatic memories.
Rose is describing a much better horror game. Something tells me Saga was embellishing her coroner training if she performs an autopsy without any scrubs, let alone gloves or a mask. Inside Nightingale's chest cavity is another manuscript page, one about Nightingale attacking them inside the morgue. Sheriff Breaker mentions having found other pages like this, but then he gets yanked away from this game by some nonsense that's connected to the Quantum Break universe and he vanishes in front of them. No one ever seems that concerned with his disappearance. Just as the manuscript says, Nightingale gets off the slab, kills the deputies, and then goes after Saga. I have no idea where Casey is during this fight since he was in the room when it all started, and he's there when Saga shoots Nightingale and he vanishes. Since there's no way for them to know what to do next, a manuscript page appears on the morgue floor and mentions Saga pursuing Nightingale to Cauldron Lake. I'd like it if these pages of the manuscript would cover the in-between story elements that lead to that instead of just giving us a page of directions. Every major revelation isn't earned through discovery. It's handed to you on a manuscript page, neatly explaining what's happening right before it happens, and where and what Saga and Alan should do next.
We heard gunshots. Y'all okay?
Did you get spooked by the bodies?
One of your co-workers is dead at your feet. Do you not see her?
Sheriff Breaker disappeared. Nightingale turned into some sort of a monster and there are offices down.
The sheriff vanished and several deputies were killed. The culprit, at large and extremely dangerous. But there's no reason to make this an incident. They just leave the sheriff's office as is and head to Cauldron Lake, and this is never brought up again or talked about by the townspeople.
Yeah, Agent Casey here. Yeah. We need backup. The Bright Falls case? Whoever you can spare.
Casey should have waited for a response from the FBI, because no other FBI agents ever come to back them up.
You know the detective character from his books, Alex Casey.
Let's discuss Alex Casey for a moment. The character is so meta he needs a passport to travel between layers of irony. He's a hard-boiled FBI agent who harbors a deep, simmering resentment of the fact that his entire career and identity are compared with the same name character of the best-selling noir novels written by Alan Wake, but it goes much deeper. Alex Casey isn't just a character. He is, for all intents and purposes, Max Payne in a witness protection program. They changed his name, gave him a new badge with the FBI, but forgot to tell his face, which is still permanently locked in the grizzled, stony grimace of Sam Lake himself, the only part of Max Payne other than the voice actor that isn't copyright of Rockstar. In the dark place, Alan interacts with a full-blown fictional ghost of Casey. Altogether, we have a real person, Sam Lake's likeness, playing an FBI agent, Alex Casey, who is pissed off about being the spitting image of a fictional character, Alex Casey from Alan Wake's books, who is also being portrayed as a separate fictional ghost, Alex Casey the noir protagonist, by the same actor, Sam Lake, who is really just a stand-in for a character they don't own, Max Payne, while Sam Lake also plays himself in the game while also playing an actor who is playing Alex Casey. Are you following? Of course you aren't. Nobody is. And as a final screw you to coherence, the actor James McCaffrey, who's the voice of Max Payne and Alex Casey, also played a completely different character, Thomas Zane, in the first Alan Wake game. Meanwhile, in another building entirely, James McCaffrey's likeness and voice portrays the former director of the FBC in Control, Director Trench. The entire Remedy-connected universe isn't held together by a narrative thread, it's held together by one Finnish man's refusal to hire another actor. A manuscript page stuck in a tree tells Saga to head to the witch's hut. Inside that, she finds another manuscript page that describes the ritual of shoving the heart through a hole in the witch's chest while reciting a poem to open the way to the overlap. Saga then uses profiling in her mind place to deduce that Nightingale's heart is at the general store inside a fridge. Hardly any of the objectives are arrived at through actual problem solving or deduction. The game either drops a manuscript page, or Saga profiles someone and gets a confession. Flashlights are still used to burn away the darkness surrounding Taken so you can finish them off, and flashlights had to be focused to do so, which drains the battery in seconds and requires you to scavenge batteries from the environment, something that would be much harder to do to survive in current times since most electronics use non-removable rechargeable lithium batteries. People just don't keep as many AA batteries on hand these days. Saga accepts and understands the supernatural surprisingly easily. She starts gunning people down without worry or proper procedure from the get-go, and she figures out how to open the overlap by sticking Nightingale's heart to the witch's cutout and accepts all this as normal reality. After defeating Nightingale in the overlap, Saga receives a jumbled message from Alan Wake, right before she finds herself on the lake shore where she discovers Alan Wake washed up. It's strange that Sam Lake, who's adamant about keeping actors in their faces through multiple iterations, went with a completely different design for Alan. After taking Alan back to the lodge, he gets dressed in Alan Wake's American Nightmare skin. That pseudo-sequel to the first game featured Alan stuck in an annoying time loop battling Scratch to save Alice that reused the same levels 3 separate times. And in this game, Alan Wake once again finds himself stuck in a time loop going over the same 3 areas again and again while battling Scratch to save Alice.
Is there anyone you'd like us to reach out to, Mr. Wake? You've been gone a long time.
No. They'd be in danger.
The test for any plot twist is with hindsight, does it still make sense? And Alan simply has no reason to believe his wife would be in danger. They gave her a phone call. But it would spoil that she's alive. I remember everything, but only linearly for some reason, one event at a time. Alan should be able to cut right to the end and recall that Alice is dead and that Scratch is inside of him.
You left us on quite the cliffhanger. We've all been dying to know what "it's not a lake, it's an ocean" really means.
I haven't. I always knew it was just sequel baiting.
Very meta indeed. You see, Initiation tells the story of a fictional writer named Alan Wake, who is trapped in a nightmare, desperately trying to find the manuscript of a novel he has forgotten he has written. The book is set in New York, but it might not be New York at all. He is tormented by his dark doppelganger and guided by visions of a fictional detective he has written. That's right, Alex Casey is in this book as well.
The one bright spot about being so meta is that the game is forced to acknowledge how shit its plot is.
I found the structure of the reality you build in the book fascinating. It reminded me of The Matrix.
You're talking about the wrong game, Mr. Dorr. That would be Max Payne with his bullet time.
All this talk of meta-narratives. I kept expecting to disappear once this scene ends.
Is it possible to overdose on creative writing classes? Alan's writer's room is a celestial version of Microsoft Word's Clippy. It looks like you're trying to write a paradoxical plot point to escape a dark dimension. Would you like to insert a plot hole or contrive coincidence? His central mechanic is literally just editing, and yet the most he can do with the power to rewrite reality is change the interior design of a room. With nothing else to do, Alan begins writing to try and find a way out. The same thing he's been doing for 13 years with no luck. He writes himself back at the talk show, this time alongside Sam Lake, playing Alex Casey and doing the Max Payne constipated face.
He looks exactly like I always imagined Casey to be. It's uncanny.
Thank you. That means so much to me.
Doesn't quite sound like him though, unless Alex Casey is voiced by an awkward Finnish man.
These adaptations... I don't know. I guess I just wish I could have been more involved in making them.
Sam Lake is listening to Alan Wake talk about the Alex Casey movies where he wishes he would have been consulted on them. In reality, this is Sam Lake complaining about Rockstar cutting him out of the Max Payne movies. But I've seen Sam Lake's live-action directing in Quantum Break. He wouldn't have made that flop any better.
Great job, Sam. Very exciting and very meta.
I'm not going to give Sam Lake a standing ovation for how meta this all is. Writing a story about a writer writing a story where his writing comes to life isn't groundbreaking. It's an infinite regression of self-reference and ultimately leads to nothing but your own smug reflection. The go-to move for any author who can't be bothered to build a world that stands on its own without winking at the audience every 5 seconds. Alan runs into Audie from Control, who refers to Alan as Tom. He gives Alan the key to the basement where Alan can find something he apparently previously stored there. That's simply the metaplot gaslighting again by giving you something brand new while telling you that you gave it to yourself. With the angel lamp, Alan can take the light from one source into the lamp and place it somewhere else, which changes the environment around him. It's functionally the same as a plot board, only restricted to sources of light. I never found a good reason to have 2 identical mechanics. Finding a payphone these days is a bit anachronistic, but since Alan is 13 years behind the times, I guess it's fine he wrote that in.
Listen to me carefully. Caldera Street Station, the subway. You need to go there.
There's fewer manuscript pages to direct Alan, but more collect calls. Alan is assaulted by his own fictional detective avatar Alex Casey, a character so hard-boiled he makes forgotten eggs feel soft. It's the most meta, self-indulgent circle jerk you can imagine being at the uncomfortable center of. If running into Max Payne's doppelganger wasn't enough, Alan finds Sheriff Breaker stranded in the dark world with him. Tying up loose ends to a game you lost the rights to has to be difficult, but Sam Lake insists on forcing Alan Wake 2 to be a worse game so he can tell you more of Quantum Break's uninteresting story. Alan's section is supposed to feel like a half-remembered dream, where things happen and there's no reason for most of it. Realizing his story is garbage, Alan has to find a way to repurpose his old Alex Casey novels to get through areas by finding inspiration in the environment and taking it to the plot board to change reality, a literal tool for correcting bad plotting, but he only uses it to change door is locked to door is slightly ajar, proving that even in a reality-bending nightmare, the most dramatic action you can take is a minor set decoration. Casey's investigation zeroes in on the Cult of the Word, a group of deranged fans who have taken Alan's Alex Casey novels as gospel and recreate the murders within them. Their motivation is thin. They just really like Alan's work. They're the world's most dangerous book club. Just to keep you on the dark place meta-narrative, Alan Wake is following a fictional Alex Casey, who is investigating the villainous Alan Wake Scratch, and a fictional cult that worships him called the Cult of the Word that is based on a real cult that wants to kill the real Alan Wake. Also, Alan can rewrite the novel Initiation so he can escape the dark world. Alan and Saga's stories intertwine at times in the overlap. This mostly means that every time Saga finds a plot coupon in the real world, Alan has to find a slightly different version of it in the dark place. After they finish the Can You Hear Me part of the Zoom call where they adjust audio settings, Parliament Tower, Alan's old home in New York where he lived with his wife, appears.
I set up cameras around the apartment with motion sensors and flashes. Now, when the monster comes, I turn it into art.
Did no one think it was weird that you were capturing photos of your missing husband and putting them into an art gallery? Alan returns to the writer's room as another Alan sits dead at the typewriter from a gunshot to the head. You may recall this is the setup for Control, with Jesse discovering the director dead at the desk, only later learning he was possessed by an evil extra-dimensional MP3 file. Sam Lake decided to reuse that either out of laziness or because it's meta.
You got out of the dark place by writing a novel, the pages we've been finding. But your double edited it into a horror story that's now changing reality.
In the first game, Alan was the key to creating the world the Dark Presence wanted because only his writing could create it. Now it can write the novel itself and use the clicker that Thomas Zane wrote into his story so Alan could stop it back in 2010. If the Dark Presence can just rewrite reality on its own, why does it need any of this? Alan Wake, the clicker, all of it is its own creation. None of it would even exist without the Dark Presence in the first place.
What I want to know is, why am I? Why are we written into the story?
It would shock you even more to learn you were once a white lady. Using profiling, Saga learns that Alan is hiding pages of the manuscript that inform him that the cultists in Watery have the clicker. Watery is a nearby town settled by Finnish immigrants, and I must say, they've done well holding on to their accents after several generations.
Great to see you back in Watery, Saga. Everyone in town missed you.
The Koskela brothers, Ilmo and Yako, recognize Saga and tell her how good it is to see her again in Watery, having been her former landlords when she lived here. Which is odd because you can meet Ilmo at the FBC monitoring station at the lake and he shows no such recognition, only noting that Saga's sweater is of Nordic design. But now he's her old landlord who kept her trailer exactly as she left it, which is a very odd thing for a landlord to do. Wouldn't he rent that trailer to someone else as soon as she moved out? And why would Saga have left all of her stuff here? Maybe Alan is just a phenomenally shitty writer.
Right next to Coffee World is the workshop of our own Kalevala Knights Motorcycle Club.
Ilmo is the leader of the Cult of the Tree but never tries to steer Saga away from them, even though he knows she's investigating their murders. Even telling her all about Coffee World and the motorcycle club he owns where they keep the clicker.
People hate the puzzles, Ilmo. Why not just use keys?
Saga wants to see her old trailer, but the keys are in Coffee World. The trailer keys are still in the safe when Saga arrives, since Coffee World is empty. So she has to profile the brothers again to read their minds and get the combination. There is no way you can intuition your way into a safe combination. Saga is really thick for not realizing her own abilities.
It's so good to finally see you, Saga. I am your great uncle Odin, and this is your long-lost Mortar 5, Tor.
I'm starting to think Sam Lake believes he can rewrite reality too, if he expects me to buy that Odin and Tor are now Saga's uncle and grandfather. Inside her daughter's room in their old trailer, Saga finds a photo of Tor and Odin hanging out with a cult member at the nearby motorcycle club and holding up the clicker. A weird photo for those two to take since they're not members of the cult, and why would the cult be showing off the clicker, which is their most important relic? Alan really sucks at writing a cohesive narrative that flows naturally. Saga also finds an old newspaper that covered the accidental drowning of her daughter Logan, and suddenly can't reach her over the phone. This should be the most distressing thing imaginable for Saga, but she treats it with the same muted response she's had toward everything else. This lady should be a mess right now. Reality is breaking down around her. She's being assaulted by monsters, missing writers are appearing out of the lake, long-lost family members reveal themselves, and now her daughter is dead. Imagine a song stuck on the first part of the chorus. Row, row, row your boat. Row, row, row your boat. Row, row, row your boat. But it never hits the second part of the chorus. Gently down the stream.
Mulligan and Thornton are members of the cult. Who's the leader?
Brains leaking out like milk. The thrill of domination.
Now that Mulligan and Thornton have become taken, they're more than just misogynistic town deputies. They receive the prestigious evil white person monster filter on their voice. After Saga reclaims the clicker from the deputies at the bottom of the well, she receives another disjointed message from Alan in the overlap, which should alarm her since Alan is back in Bright Falls. But she assumes this is a message from the past when Alan was still stuck in the dark place, as she is now an expert on alien dimensions she's never been to and only learned about the other day. But it is a surprisingly accurate guess in the end.
Did you put my family in the horror story?
Saga gets upset that Alan put her family in a horror story, to which I agree. She would have been better as an unimportant NPC.
My name comes up, your books come up. You come up. I've read them. There are echoes of my life in there that makes me feel like someone's been watching me.
That's why professional writers always include the disclaimer about any similarities to real people or events are coincidental. That would have blown the hell out of this entire mess. The cultists wage an assault on the lodge in the middle of town to kill Alan, which the townfolk won't react to either. Casey runs out the door rather than stay and protect their only suspect and witness who is unarmed and unsecured. Alan collapses in the lodge after Casey runs out and awakens sometime later to the room he passed out in, completely trashed. If the cultists got inside the very room Alan was unconscious in, why did they only wreck the room and refrain from cutting Alan's heart out? The cultists who assaulted the lodge were human, but there are also cultists Taken attacking as well. The weird thing is, this cult secretly kills Taken, but so far most of the members seem to have become Taken themselves, and the cult never seems to acknowledge that fact. The cult's ritual involved cutting out a Taken's heart, then inserting the clicker to completely destroy them. But this time, they refrained from bringing the clicker with them to kill their number one target, Alan Wake. Despite the running gunfight that just took place in town, not a single local police officer showed up to try to stop it. The FBC is the one that arrived and started arresting people. Saga, a government agent, decides she doesn't trust another government agent for no reason and doesn't mention the clicker. At the very least, Saga should be calling the FBI since her partner is missing.
From what I've gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with mama's pretty stories and your own made-up fury.
And mama gave me a magic clicker.
There's nothing quite like the unwavering confidence of a theater kid who has finally been told yes. Because Alan's next draft of Initiation is the moment the game's director clearly locked the doors of the motion capture studio, cranked the synth rock to 11, and decided that what his Epic Games funded gritty noir horror game truly needed was his own personal live-action rock opera. It's the video game equivalent of a middle school drama teacher finally getting a budget for the spring musical and deciding to put on Apocalypse Now the musical. I hope that was worth the budget expenditure, because it added nothing to the game other than a weird moment to talk about while recapping the events of the first game in the midpoint of this one. I guess it did allow Sam Lake to perform it during the Game Awards. Alan receives another collect call from the same mystery person, and when Alan explains that Alice is in danger since Scratch is after her, and that he saw that there's a new manuscript called Return, the caller directs Alan to come see him at the Ocean View Hotel, having already left the room key in the payphone for him since he apparently knew Alan was going to say all that, in which case he should have just started with directions. At this point, Max Payne and his successor Alex Casey have been killed by Sam Lake more than any other character in video games. Max essentially died once in each of the first two games, once to an overdose and once to a bullet in his head, and now he's died twice in this game. In room 665, the neighbor of the beast, very creative by the way, Sam, Alan finds a projector and switches it on. When the room changes, he finds himself inside the film with Thomas Zane, who is no longer voiced by Max Payne's voice actor James McCaffrey, since I guess that would have been a little too meta. He's also no longer a poet like he was in the first game, instead being a coke-fueled avant-garde filmmaker. He also shouldn't exist at all since he wrote himself out of the plot so Alan could take over, and was only ever seen wearing a deep-sea diving suit.
You look like me, how the hell?
Or maybe you look like me, you handsome devil.
Honestly, I don't know how this works, because the Alan of this game looks nothing like the Alan of the first game, and Dr. Darling of the FBC looks and sounds just like the old Alan Wake. Hire some different actors, Sam. The best thing about Alan Wake 2 is that it begins with the letter A, so when you go to uninstall it halfway through the game after you reach this scene, it'll save you time by being at the top of your Steam library.
Return is the key to escaping the dark place. You need to get it before that freak does. There's a murder site here in the hotel. Let the waves of your writing carry you there.
Supposedly, Alan is taking inspiration from his old Alex Casey novels and make his way toward Parliament Tower. But this time, he's clearly ripping off Sleep No More. The Ocean View Hotel is used for an immersive theater noir murder mystery of a lost manuscript from Thomas Zane. Sleep No More was also an immersive theater experience set in the McKittrick Hotel in New York, featuring a noir retelling of Macbeth through interpretive dance and a lot of nudity. I've been to it. It was awesome. And I know Sam Lake has been to it as well, since this is way too close to be inspired by anything else. There was even a restaurant on the roof you could eat at, just like there is in the game. Alan returns to his old home, once again setting off the photo trap Alice set up to capture images of what she thought was Alan's spirit. She turned her entire apartment into an art exhibition on the darkness and scratch. This is a dark world of Alan's creation through the manuscript initiation, not the real world where Alice got up to these exact events. In the video she filmed of herself can be viewed here. Alan's getting clear communication from Alice in her New York apartment, then with Saga in the overlaps. In the writer's room, Alan finds a complete manuscript for return, but he didn't write it. Scratch did, which goes against the rules established in the first game, where the Dark Presence needed Alan to do the writing since it can't create art itself. As Alan is editing the manuscript to try and stop Scratch, Scratch arrives and shoots him in the head. But since no scene with Alan can ever transition or make sense, he just wakes up again in the writer's room. Rose runs a nursing home alongside the local diner. I'm not sure how she finds time to do both, since a nursing home is a pretty full-time job, or how she affords it. This lady lived in a trailer park in the first game, and somehow she even finds time to act as the town's protector and leave supply caches throughout the woods. Odin is way too drunk to speak, so Saga profiles him, which I'm not sure what her intention was since she thinks her profiling is just her intuition, and there's not much intuition you can gain from a passed out drunk. But Odin profiles her right back and they speak directly to each other's mind. He tells her that all Andersons have this psychic power. Saga's mother never mentioned anything about her father or grandfather, and I suppose Saga never developed any curiosity about them to go looking into the matter since her mother told her they were trouble. But what that trouble is, the game never mentions, so it just seems like Saga's mother was being irrational and not telling her about her family, especially for a biracial child. Odin declines to tell Saga anything about the cult, including the fact that it's a fake cult and that its purpose is to kill Taken.
The light switch is like an amp. You can play rock and roll without it, but you won't blow anyone away. Art, like Tom's writing, can change the world, but the light switch will crank that change to 11.
The clicker now acts as an amp, somehow supercharges whatever has been written, which is not exactly what it did in the first game. Alan never wrote that he put his hand inside Barbara's chest and turned it on.
Is my mind place more than just a mental technique?
Lady, you were reading minds and learning facts you could have not have known otherwise. I'm surprised it took you this long to figure it out.
Cynthia Weaver, I know it's you! This kind of behavior is not okay!
Rose has protected the town of Bright Falls from the Taken after her ordeal back in the first game, but she didn't do anything to make her retirement home and wellness center safe from them. It's not exactly well lit or staffed in there.
Your grandfather made the song to apologize to your mother, Freya, and to you.
Saga's mother is really named Freya. The Anderson family must have loved living up to stereotypes. Cynthia took the record from the museum and the retirement home, so Saga profiles her to read her mind and know where she took it. But the power dies and the electric locks won't work. Auntie appears and tells her to go to the basement to check the generator. It feels like things will move forward even if I just stand there.
Did you write Logan into the story?
It's not that bad, Saga. Logan isn't even in this story outside of mentions and phone conversations.
The night's got ears. We can have our talk in your head.
Tor will only speak to Saga in her mind plays because suddenly the Dark Presence can listen in on their conversations. He never had that concern back in the first game.
Odin already told you you're a seer. You can gaze into their heads, see the truth. See past the lies. Past this bullshit horror story. Us Andersons aren't bound by it. You can fight it.
Tor says they're not bound by this bullshit horror story since they are seers, so unlike the other residents, they know Saga didn't live here recently, which is odd because it does seem to affect Logan, since she was written out of the plot through drowning even though she should have a mind place that Saga could contact her over.
Things were said and done. Not a day goes by I haven't regretted it. But that fucking father of yours didn't make things any easier.
If you don't want to elaborate on why Saga's father was so bad, I'm going to have to assume it's for certain small-town reasons. It's implied that Mr. Dorr is Saga's father. Does that have anything to do with the plot other than be mysterious? No, they never meet.
Just the light switch isn't enough. It's Tom's story we're dealing with, so he's gotta be the one to rewrite it. After that's done, he can flick that switch to bring the whole thing home, baby.
Saga needs Alan to finish the story. The clicker itself isn't enough. So she returns to the sheriff's station, but everyone there is dead, both police and FBC. And still, the town won't care. Agent Estevez, the FBC agent who also leads the game's main DLC, is the only survivor, having bravely hid in the closet where darkness couldn't find her for some reason. Casey was found in the woods injured and scared, but during the Taken attack he found a fuse on one of the dead FBC agents, which is exactly what Saga was looking for, so she could turn on the lights and open up the holding cells. Alan is being kept in the same cell he was kept in during the first game when another FBI agent showed up to question him. Turns out this Alan was actually Scratch all along, and rather than take the clicker that he needs, Scratch gets distracted by Yako shit-talking him and kills him instead so he can have a better outfit. Luckily, the FBC set up some shadow containment technology in the sheriff's department backlot. It's really just some poorly shaped floodlights that are powered by multiple generators, so Saga uses that to force him to retreat.
Cult is my craziest idea that ever worked. Look, what kind of a cult calls themselves a cult? Exactly. We protect water in Bright Falls.
Filmo explains that the cult was basically a local community theater group that was dedicated to keeping Bright Falls safe by killing Taken whenever they discovered them. It was never an actual cult. That's cute and all, but they still attacked federal agents earlier, so he should be locked up instead of being allowed to round up the remaining fake cultists to help out.
Don't let the story confuse you.
I would appreciate that as well. The plan is to use the clicker to get the real Alan out of the dark place. They just need a rock ballad about him escaping to use the clicker on, and a containment system to capture Scratch, and both of those things present themselves.
Tor, I need the old gods of Asgard. I need a very special song.
Why use your phone to call Tor and ask him to perform a song when you can speak to him telepathically?
I need a song about Alan Wake. About bringing him out of the dark place.
Normally there's a rush fee for wanting a full song to be written and performance ready within a couple days. Is it even possible to do it within an hour? Why did Saga drive here when she could have just taken the chopper like Estevez and Casey did?
I can drop more gear down for you if you're running low.
I'll use the lights to hit the Taken when they come. Light them up for you.
Casey and Estevez take up position on the rock overlooking the beach. Meanwhile, Saga stays on the beach while they promise to drop more gear if she runs low. All three of you can fight from the advantageous location, you know. These two geriatrics sound 50 years younger for this performance. They also somehow found a third member of the band. Saga uses the clicker and it seems to work at first, with Alan appearing on the beach, but then he vanishes again and leaves Saga wondering what just happened. Alan returns to the late-night TV show with Mr. Dorr, but this time Dorr doesn't play the talk show host role and just acts like he's Lance Reddick.
All these rules, endless, convoluted loops you insist on going through.
Dorr would be great at sinning this game.
There are so many people helping you. Armies of people.
I wouldn't go that far. These Alan Wake games have never been big sellers.
It's time someone gave me a straight answer here.
The next time we meet, the circumstances will be very different.
Which in an evolving situation like this, yeah, that's exactly true. Which makes this a meaningless statement. Ati has been keeping Alice's photos in a shoebox in the basement for Alan. One photo with the clicker sinking into darkness, the other a bullet of light. It's like the plot has a delivery app instead of progression. Alan turns on the projector and then finds himself in the movie holding a gun to Zane's head and threatening him. According to Zane, Alan had given up on writing, claiming they didn't deserve to get out. That had only made things worse. But then Scratch showed up, promising to write and get Zane out of here. But then he took return once they were finished and left Zane here. Zane is someone who once wrote himself out of existence to stop Barbara Jagger, the dark presence doppelganger of his love. Now he's willing to work with the very same thing in Alan's form. After Zane tells Alan about a murder site in a cinema where Nightless Night is playing, the scene shifts and now Alan is in the chair and Zane holds the gun on him. But then it shifts right back and Alan shoots Zane. But once the film ends, Zane reveals it was all a show.
En kierrä kehää. Tämä on spiraali.
Nightless Night is a lost Thomas Zane film that the cult used for their initiation. It stars Sam Lake as Alex Casey in a really boring short film that reminds me too much of Quantum Break's live action scenes.
Look, you got the wrong guy. I'm not Alex Casey. I only play him in the movies. He's just a fictional character.
What's going on here?
You don't have to kill me. You don't have to go get that knife and stab me.
Taking death of the author a little too literally, don't you think, Sam? The payphone rings again, but this time it isn't Zane. It's Alan himself calling from a different place in the time loop, presumably Alan Wake 3. I'll be drawing Social Security before that one gets a resolution.
I'm my own Deus Ex Machina? Really?
Alan would be great at sinning this game. After Alan places the 2 photos in a shoebox by the statue, he heads up to the apartment, where he discovers Alice chose to take her own life rather than continue to be haunted by Scratch. Her last film ends with her throwing herself into Cauldron Lake. Alan returns to the writer's room and finds another Alan Wake scratching edits into return and shoots him in the head. Only after does Alan realize that it wasn't Scratch he shot, but himself from the end of the previous loop. He had been the one haunting Alice to the point of suicide by returning to the apartment in the dark place. There never was an actual Scratch, just Alan in different time loops until he was broken enough for the dark presence to take control of him. I don't know if that tracks because I distinctly remember Scratch being a separate entity from Alan in the first game's DLC and in American Nightmare. Saga did manage to rescue Alan from the dark place with a clicker, but it wasn't tonight that he was rescued, but the night before after she faced Nightingale, and that Alan was the one that was just taken over by the dark presence. Crossing over apparently dulled Scratch and allowed Alan to still control himself, but conveniently forgot everything he had just went through so he couldn't warn Saga and Casey. Could you have focused those lights before the fighting started? They knew this was going to happen and they would need them to capture Scratch. They shine lights on Alan and force the dark presence out of him, which is news to me. I shine lights on darkness corrupted people all the time in this game, and it only weakens them so I can kill them. Scratch was prepared for this and also took Casey back during the cult attack, making twice now a James McCaffrey character in the Remedyverse has been taken over by another dimensional evil. He takes the clicker and throws Saga into the lake, but leaves Alan alone despite all the trouble he's caused for it.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but it's official. Tear Fist is cancelled.
I like to think this was because their entire police force was wiped out, but honestly, it was probably a budgeting issue. Casey uses the clicker and drops it, but then a hand in the darkness grabs it, which I suppose is supposed to be Alice's spirit, but later we find out she's not dead, so go figure. The Anderson brothers walk into Cauldron Lake to help from that side. What they actually go and do is play the rock opera on Door's show, and Door's supposed to be someone they hate. They waited until the final act to make it feel somewhat similar to the original game. We could have had 12 hours of this instead and it would have been a much better game. Alan is on his way to re-enter the dark place to retrieve a copy of the manuscript so he can rewrite it. But how does Alan have the keys to Saga's car when she had them on herself when she was tossed into the lake?
A genre-bending mixture of fact and fiction.
Alan Wake's latest novel, Return, is breaking every literary record in existence. It's the great American novel.
A spellbinding tour de force.
Worlds and characters echo each other in unique and surprising ways. The overlap scenes in particular are rich examples of this theme.
The tragedy of Saga losing her family is a blatant commentary on a woman's struggle to balance her personal and professional lives.
In Scratch's ending for Return, all of the Bright Falls residents have turned into IGN reviewers.
I could see the round windows of the writer's room in the photo. That's where I had to go.
Alan doesn't even know about the retirement home. It was only built after he disappeared. Scratch chases him through the wellness center, but he's saved by Rose, who opens the door for him. This is all very reminiscent of the nightmare Alan had at the beginning of the first game, but here it's taking place at the end of the second game. God, you're just so smart, Sam. How do you do it?
I needed an ending that took everything already in Return and extended it into a conclusion that would save us.
How do you defeat an Eldritch reality-bending evil darkness? With a plot twist. Seriously. Alan realizes the only way to win is to write a better ending. The final boss is essentially a debate over the Oxford comma. Meanwhile, Saga's role is to stand in a room and believe in herself very hard.
Another white asshole deciding what I get to do, how I get to do it.
The intrusive thoughts that Dark Place is forcing into Saga's mind sound awfully familiar to obnoxious online social media commentary about games. Is that Sam Lake being meta again? Or just lucking into an actual interesting comparison? To get out of her mind place, Saga has to remind herself that she's a good person who wasn't ignoring her daughter and partner. That's all. But it takes a real long time though. It's essentially the final boss fight. All she does after escaping this room is find the shoebox Alex left that contains his wife's photos of the clicker and the bullet of light, which have now transformed into those items so she can take them to the writer's room. Sheriff Breaker gives Saga the page he tried to give her back in the morgue before disappearing. Saga doesn't seem to care or have much time for him, despite him being stuck in the same exact situation Alan finds himself in. Saga gets a phone call from herself in the future telling her she needs to help Alan finish the ending, so she uses her mind place to contact him and essentially dictate the ending to Alan, who is supposed to be a best-selling author.
This isn't Scratch's ending, but this isn't your ending either. This is our ending. You aren't the only one deciding these things anymore.
You're right. I can't do this alone. Every time I write, things only get worse.
Well, you better put her name on the book as a co-writer then if we're going to insist on this bullshit.
Well, if the ending has to fit the story. This is how I see it. Return is a story about a story that comes true. And I'm a character in this story.
Not just a character. The hero.
Okay, a hero. In any case, I've been through hell to be here. And this is my life. It feels earned to me that I rise above the story and be there to create the ending.
Saga is so good, she gets to dictate her fan fiction ending to Alan Wake, where she blows his brains out with a bullet of light after he's repossessed by the dark presence. This lady, who's had a grand total of 2 rough days, feels she's owed the good ending over the guy who spent the last 13 years in a living nightmare. Saga tries to call her daughter, but the shot ends during the ringtone, I'm sure leaving you hanging in suspense on the survival of this character we never saw. Turns out Alice didn't kill herself. That was a ruse. She had been in contact with the FBC. With their help, she was able to recall all the things that happened to her in Bright Falls and that Alan wasn't dead. She even knew the haunting was actually Alan reaching out to her, and somehow she figured that misleading Alan into believing that she was dead was the only way out of his loop through destruction or ascension. How could she have possibly known what he was going through and the exact method to help him? And if the FBC was this aware of the situation, why did the FBC in Bright Falls seem to be completely clueless about everything going on? Especially concerning Alan Wake and Scratch.
It's not a loop. It's a spiral.
When you get to make a sequel to a game after over a decade of trying to get it done, don't end on the same terrible cliffhanger you ended the first one on. But if you play through the entire game a second time, you get the true ending, where Logan picks up the call from Saga and tells her about a nightmare she had and asks if Saga can come home, and Alan comes back to life after being shot in the head. So I guess all that talk about the ending having to be dark and there needing to be a sacrifice was bullshit. That or New Game Plus is such an antithetical idea to written fiction that it broke the rules.
Very meta indeed.
Instead of complaining about how terrible YouTube is for creators right now and giving you a long rant on an algorithm neither you, God, nor myself can understand, I'll get straight to the call to action. If you enjoy my content and want to see more of it in the future, consider joining my Patreon. It directly supports me and you get exclusive videos like classic and DLC sins every month, along with regular game sim videos early and uncensored. I keep it cheap at just $3 a month so it costs less than your vaping habit or below average OnlyFans subscription. Or maybe you can use that new hype feature YouTube added to the app and hype this video up for the next week. Who knows, it might do some good. At the very least, you can like and subscribe. Special thanks to Verdictions, Vanilla Pixel, Brainwane, Chris, Solomon McGuire, Alexander Cortez, Roman Are You Sleeping, Nervous Nelly, Xavier, Notorious SKP, Max Headroom, DJ Nelson, Azeneth the Succubus, Musical Pumpkin, Castlemania, Zenro, Michelle C, Dennis O'Brien, Donald Talbot, Montezuma, Aaron Hines, Sky is Under, Eric Kisser, Shadow Wolf Gaming, Erpel Jaeger, Church Kiones, S Venus, Mario Neto, Ben Hottie, Biohazard, and Charmsy.